Hello guys, welcome to my SQL series on learning. My name is Nse. Today we are going to talk about the not null constraint. In explaining this, I will use the books table. Remember that we created a books table in the previous lesson. If this sounds strange to you, you may want to see the lesson on inserting data into tables. The link is in the description. Let's head over to the command line and see how this works. Here in the command line, I'll enter my password. Also, remember that our books table is in the bookstore database. So let's use bookstore. Use bookstore because you're always expected to specify the database that you want to use. So this is us specifying the database that we want to use, and the database is the bookstore database. Of course, not forgetting the semicolon. I'll hit the enter key of my keyboard. Now let's describe books table. I'll just say DESC books semicolon. I'll hit enter. Here in the books table, we have the field column, which we have talked about. We have type. We have also talked about type. We have null. The field column simply contains the headings of our table. If I select star from books, semicolon, hit enter, notice that the headings of this table, this books table, are book ID, book title, and author name. That's exactly what we have under field here: book ID, book title, and author name. Remember, we said type here refers to the data type that's specified for each field or column. So this is just refreshing our minds. In the case of book ID, we gave it the data type of int. In the case of book title, we set the data type to varchar and we gave it a maximum limit of 200 characters. So book title column cannot accept more than 200 characters for each data insert. Author name has varchar set to 100, so any author name that has more than 100 characters cannot fit into the author name column. Okay, so that being said, today we are talking about this null column. Here in the books table, notice that for the three fields, book ID, book title, and author name, we have null set to yes. We have yes for book ID, yes for book title, and yes for author name. What this means is that these three fields or columns can accept null value. Now, what is null value? In MySQL, null is a special value that means that a particular piece of data is not available or has not been provided yet. It is simply a way to say we don't know, or there is no value for a specific field. Going by what we have just said about null, these three fields, book ID, book title, and author name, can be left without a value. I mean, while inserting data in the books table, you could decide to enter values for these three fields, or you could as well decide not to enter values for them. If a column in a table shows null values, It means that you can leave it empty or assign null to it. Such a column is referred to as a nullable column. So basically, a nullable column refers to a column in a database table that is allowed to contain null values. When you insert a row in a table and don't provide a value for a nullable column, it will be stored as null. If you explicitly insert null into a column, it will be stored as a null value. Explicitly inserting null means typing null as a value when inserting values to columns in a table. Let's see how all of this that we have said works. I want to show how to explicitly enter null value in a column. We have the statement insert into books, book ID, and we are setting the value to null. I'm going to hit enter, but before I hit enter, I want us to notice that we have 3 columns in the books table: book ID, book title, and the author name. But here in the insert statement, we are specifying only one column, and that is the book ID column. I am doing this because I only want to insert data into the book ID column for now. So we'll hit enter and let's select star from books. Now notice that we have added to the books table. This is how the books table was. The last set of data added was 2 under book ID, insert textbook under book title, and null under author name. After running this insert statement, this is how the books table now looks. We have null added under book ID, null added under book title, and we have null added under author name. This null that is added under book ID is the value that we provided to be inserted into book ID while writing this insert statement. But we also have null under book title and we have null under author name. Even though we did not provide values for book title or author name in this insert statement. Note please that null is not the same as 0 or an empty string. It is a distinct value that represents the absence of a value. So now let's insert into books again, but this time we are assigning values explicitly to the 3 columns. So for book ID, we are assigning 0. For book title, we are assigning null. And for author name, we are assigning an empty string. Let's hit enter. Now let's select star from books because our query is okay. Notice here now that we have 0 written because we assigned 0 as book ID this time. We have null under book title because that's what we specified. We have an empty space under author name because for author name this time we specified an empty string. So you can have 0, you can have an empty string, you can have null. Null is not 0, null is not an empty string. I'm going to take us back to this point in our table where we have book ID set to null, book title as null, and author name as null. Now, while this query may have run okay, we have null as the value for book ID, book title, and author name. This is not what I want here. I want to have values provided for all the columns. Sometimes it may be okay to have null. On the other hand, there could be columns which you always want values provided for. Now, to stop this books table from accepting null values or from accepting empty values in columns where we mandatorily require values. If you do not want to freely leave a column on your table blank, or if you do not want to freely allow a column on your table to accept null values, then use the not null constraint. Let's see how that works. To show how to use the not null constraint, I am going to create a new table. And this table, I'm going to call it tech books. So we have our create table statement, create table, the table name tech books. We are assigning this two columns into it, the book ID column, and we are giving it data type of int. Book title column, we are giving it data type of varchar, and we are setting the maximum limit to 200. And we have not null written here. This not null specified here for the book title column is us indicating that the book title column must always contain values. It cannot be left empty. It cannot be assigned a null value. Now let's run this command. We have an error. I'm going to have to do that again. There's an error somewhere in the statement. So let's hit enter and notice that query is okay. Let's describe the table. I'll just say DSC take books, semicolon. Now notice that under null, this null column here, we have yes for book ID, while we have no for book title. We have no for book title just because we added not null to it at the point of creating this table. While inserting data into tech books, we have to always provide a value in the book title column. Now let's try and insert data into tech books. We have our query here, insert into tech books. We are specifying only the book ID column and we are inserting value of 1 into it. Let's hit enter. So you can see that there is this error here. The error says field book title doesn't have a default value. This error comes because we failed to provide a value for book title while inserting data into tech books. Remember that we have this not null constraint added to the book title column. This now makes the value of null for book title to become no. So because we have no here, MySQL always expects us to provide value for the book title column. Now let's try this again. Let's try to insert data into tech books again. This time we are going to specify both the book ID column and the book title column because we want data entered into both columns. Now let me set it to null this time. So here in this insert statement, we are saying insert data to book ID column and book title column. Now, for book ID, give it the value of 1. For book title, give it the value of null. Let's hit enter. You can also see that we have another error. This time the error says column book title cannot be null. This, of course, is because we have this not null constraint in the book title column. So this title cannot be empty, and you cannot explicitly assign null to it. Now, let's insert data into textbooks table again. So we have insert into textbooks book title, and we are assigning value of MySQL for beginners to it. Notice here that this time we are not specifying the book ID column as one of the columns that we want to insert data into. So that means that by the time this command runs, there will be no value inserted under book ID. Let's hit enter. Let's see what happens. Notice that query is okay, even though we did not provide value for book ID column. Now this query is okay because here in the textbooks table, we have the value of null set to yes for the book ID column. Now let's select star from textbooks. I'll hit enter. So notice here that on the textbooks table, we have null set as the value for book ID, where we have MySQL for beginners set as book title. That comes from running this command. So what I'm trying to show here is that for a column that you have the not null constraint, you cannot leave any value under that column as empty. You cannot explicitly type null under it. You will run into errors. However, where you do not have the not null constraint specified, you can leave it empty. You can explicitly enter null as a value. I hope that you get the point. Now let's try and insert data into textbooks again. This time, let's provide values for both book ID and book title. For book ID, we have the value of 1, and for book title, we have the value introducing SQL. Now, notice how I have the value for the book title wrapped with single quotes. The value in this case is introducing SQL. That's the book title, and it is wrapped with single quotes. Now, while MySQL allows double quotes, other relational databases may not be happy with double quotes. So, the standard convention is using single quotes. You've seen us work with double quotes and we did not run into errors. However, it is standard convention to use single quotes. This way, if you have to use any other relational database that does not accept double quotes, then it will be very easy for you to avoid using double quotes because you are already conversant with writing SQL using single quotes. I hope that you get the point. Okay, so now that being said, let's execute the query. Notice that query is okay. Now let's select star from textbooks. So in our textbooks table here, we have the value of 1 under book ID, and we have introducing SQL under book title. We did not run into any errors because we did not break any constraint. Okay, so now let's try and insert data in textbooks one last time. I promise this is the last for today. So we have this statement: insert into textbooks. We are specifying book ID and book title as the columns to insert data, and we are inserting value of 2 into book ID and insert textbook into book title. Now let's hit enter to execute this code. So we have this error, and it says you have an error in your SQL syntax. Check the manual that corresponds to your MySQL server version for the right syntax to use near single quotes. Apparently, we have this error at this time because there is apostrophe here. The book title we are inserting has apostrophe, and using apostrophe within a string that is wrapped with single quotes like we have here can send a different message to MySQL. It can make MySQL feel like the point where you have the apostrophe is the end of the string. So that is why we have this error. You can prevent this error by using backslash like this. So when you type backslash before the apostrophe, it means that you have escaped this apostrophe. And so MySQL will now understand that this apostrophe is not a closing single quote. MySQL will now be able to read this apostrophe as a regular character and not the end of the string. Now let's hit enter and see what happens. We now have that query is okay. Let's select star from textbooks. Notice that we have the book added with book ID 2 and book title inserts textbook. Now let's take that once again. Another way to escape an apostrophe could be the use of a single quote. So when you have 2 single quotes like this, MySQL is going to understand that this is not where the string ends. We need to add another quote here, that this is not where this string ends. So single quote here is going to serve the same purpose as the backslash character that we entered here. So let's hit the enter key. Notice that query is okay. So if we select star from textbooks, we have inserts textbook added again. So when you have to use the apostrophe sign within a string wrapped with single quotes, remember to escape it either by using the backslash character or another single quote. I hope that you get the point. This is all that we are going to take in today's lesson. If you have any comments or questions, please say them in the comment section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to Learn In. Thank you for watching. See you in the next lesson.